I want to go back to the war for a second. Lamed Aleph, Pasuk Dalet is on page 904. So the Torah says they're going to war against Midian. And if you look in Pasuk, 3 lines from the top, it says, Elef lamata, lechol Mattos, Yisrael Tishel V'Latzava. So we're talking about yesterday about 1,000 from each tribe. So the Medrash does, I forgot if Rashi brings it down or not. Or does he say Rashi lamata? I can't even see. I don't remember if Rashi brings it down or the Medrash brings down or the Gemara brings down. There were 12,000 that went to war, 12,000 watched the equipment, and 12,000 davened. So there are 12,000 of each. And 12,000 went to the war, 12,000, move this thing over here. Thanks, Hilly. The 12,000 went to war, 12,000 watched the equipment, and 12,000 davened. But it says that when they davened at the battlefront. 12,000 were there at the battlefront davening. So the question is, why did they have to daven at the battlefront? Go to shul, open up the Aron Kodesh, say some Tehillim. Why are you going off to the battlefront to daven? So the obvious answer is twofold. The number one, it's Yadavet, they say that when a band plays like at a wedding, they play to the dancers. The better you dance, the better they play. That you create the enthusiasm. You never heard that? You never heard that the idea that the band plays based on the response. The audience, they play better. The better they play, the better they dance. So what's that? So the better. So when they went to the battlefront. When you see the war going on, it's one thing that we know intellectually, we're going to daven, and anyway, we know Hashem is going to protect us, and we know that all 12,000 of the warriors come back. Now, nobody was killed here. Nobody gets killed. And we're even told there are allusions, and based on the psukim, when they're told go to the war, that's all they're going to do is just approach, and Hashem will take care of it. So we all know we're all good to go. But when you're actually there, and you're seeing some stabbing and clubbing and blood and everything else, it creates a different type of davening. Sometimes when you go to visit a sick, that's why sometimes it's good, the mitzvah of visiting a sick person, push that over to me because I'm going to forget it if I don't have it now, I'm going to forget it before I leave. I will forget it. I can forget it over here too. It's not if you go to visit a sick person, sometimes you hear somebody is not well. Okay, then you go to visit him. And you see he's really not well. So it creates a different type of davening. We daven for the guy, we heard the guy was sick, you're davening. When you go to visit him and you see that he's sick, that he's serious, then you daven differently. It's a different type of davening. So when they're at the battlefront, it's going to be a different davening for them, number one. Number two, it's going to be a different battle for the Jewish people. Because, again, intellectually, we may know that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is doing it for us. But when you're the guy stabbing people and you're the guy clubbing people, there's a very big danger of kochi ve'otzem yodi that I'm accomplishing it myself. And watching the 12,000 people who are standing there davening, I don't know exactly how this worked. They're davening. They're davening. I could just imagine, he's about to stab some Midianite. He says, just 1 second. Amen, Yehei Shmei Rabbi. Yeah, okay, now that, and take him out. So it just is a reminder that it's not you. It's a reminder it's not you. It's a reminder that it's HaKadosh Baruch Hu is doing it for you, number one. Number two, they come back from the battlefront, and Moshe Rabbeinu is upset. Now, if you'll notice, take a look at the bottom, all the way at the bottom of 904. So it says, Vayiktzov Moshe al pikudei hachoyel, 2 lines at the bottom. Moshe gets upset. The next pasuk says, Vayomer Aleihem Moshe, Hachayisem Kol Nekeva. Now it could have also said, Vayomer Aleihem, because it already told us Moshe got upset with them, and the next pasuk could have started, and he said to them. Yet it says Vayomer Aleihem Moshe. It says his name again. Why does it say Moshe Rabbeinu's name again? Excellent. That means very good, Yochanan. That means it's a different Moshe now. It's a different Moshe. It's a new Moshe. It's a new Moshe. That means he got upset, but before you speak, now calm down. Somebody once said, if you ever feel like telling somebody off, don't. That's the worst possible time to do it, when you feel like doing it. It's not the right time to tell somebody off because it's not going to come off right. It's just going to come out in anger. And so Moshe Rabbeinu understands that, again, it's a lesson that we learn from Moshe Rabbeinu. This is something, by the way, that comes up in life all the time. This is extremely important. You know, sometimes, let's say you're in shul, and somebody's not doing something right in shul. Somebody's talking during laning, or somebody's, a couple of guys are schmoozing or joking around in shul. Should you say something to them, or should you not say something to them? Should you tell them to stop it, or should you not tell them to stop it? Now, the halacha says that somebody who's talking during davening, it says goarimbo, you are supposed to say something, but it doesn't say who's the one who's supposed to say something. Who should be? I know of a shul. There's a shul in Chicago where they have a rule in the shul: nobody is allowed to shush anybody except the rav. You're not allowed to shush other people. Because usually when you shush people, you're very selective about it. You usually shush people that you anyway don't like. Oh, my wife nailed me bad once, real bad. Well, it was the early days of marriage. She hasn't nailed me since then, but she nailed me. Yeah, I came home from shul. I told my wife, I think we were married 2 years. I said, wife, I had a confrontation in shul. She said, what happened? I said, these two guys were talking, and I told them to stop talking. And she said to me, what else don't you like about them? I said, what do you mean? She said, well, if they were good friends of yours, you wouldn't have done it. Oh, that hurt. Because she was right, as usual. So here you have two guys. I have a rule, and I'm going to tell you, I'll take this rule a step further. In shul, you don't have a right to say so. You shouldn't. We shouldn't. We're not at that level. Leave it for bigger people to tell people if they're doing something. It depends. Is it bothering you directly? In other words, the guy next to you is davening too loud. Okay, you can't think what you're saying because he's davening too loud. Or he's crowding you on the bench, almost sitting on your lap. Or he's shaking the bench. You can't do that. Then you have a right to nicely ask, by the way, I have trouble concentrating. Blame yourself, it's always good. I have trouble concentrating. Maybe I could ask you just to or I know that you have intense kavana because you're on a very high level, but I'm having trouble. Maybe I could ask you to lower it. That you're allowed to. Two guys in the back where you're bothered by the principle of the thing, don't get involved. That's a good rule in life. When you're bothered by the principle of the thing, don't get involved. Even more than that. I think it was Rabbi Victor Miller saw somebody doing something wrong, and he didn't intervene. He didn't say something. Not in his own shul. I don't know where it was, but he didn't get involved. This is a man who got involved on a regular basis when he had to. And somebody asked him why he didn't get involved. He said, because there's a principle in Gemara that says, Chayecha kodmim. Your life comes before somebody else's life. The classic example of the two guys in the desert, and only one guy has a jug of water, and there's not enough for both of you. If you both drink, if they both drink, they're both going to die. And if one of them drinks it himself, he'll make it out of the desert. The other guy will die. So the Gemara asks, what should you do? So the first opinion is that you share it with the other guy. Don't watch the other guy die. Rabbi Akiva says, no, chayecha kodmim, your life comes first. You have to keep yourself alive. You're not allowed to tease the other guy. Like, boy, this water is good. Yeah, you can't do that. But chayecha, your life comes first. So Rabbi Victor Miller said, my spiritual life comes first also. On the one hand, I could correct this guy because he's doing something wrong. On the other hand, that's not good for my own midos. For me to correct people is not good for my own midos. Right now, that's how, because when I correct people, I tend to get upset, and I tend to get upset. I tend to say it incorrectly. For me, at this stage in life, it's not a good thing to do. It's a very important point. Very important point. You're correcting somebody else, and what's that doing to you? Maybe you feel high and holy now. And a person has to assess this. My rule is, if it's not bothering you directly, interfering with you directly, if it's only the principle of the thing, don't get involved. Don't get involved. And if you do get involved, it's got to be very calm. I had a guy yesterday, again, a lot happens on the bus, and this is the bus without the air conditioning too. That was not a good start. So this guy was at the bus stop. I see him every morning at the bus stop. He has a cell phone. He talks loud, and he paces back and forth in front of the bus stop, where I usually have a Mishnayos open, and he paces back and forth talking loudly. Okay, the bus finally pulls up. He sits in the seat, the front seat to the right, and that was the only available seat on the bus. So I sat down next to him, and he was kind of sitting at an angle with half of his thigh on my side of the seat. So I tried being, I tried being a little bit to kind of hint at it. I just kind of put my hand down to just, first I want to check to make sure that I'm not on his side, who's crowding who over here. So I put my hand down to see, there's a little crack between the seats. And I couldn't even get my hand through because his thigh is over. So I said to him, just very nicely, so he moved his thigh over a little bit, but we were still bumper to bumper. And the bus, the air conditioning wasn't working. And so it was hot. And I really didn't feel like having his thigh against my thigh. And then he takes off, I can make this up if I wanted to. He takes his hat off and started fanning himself with his hat, but he was fanning himself in front of my eyes. So I didn't say anything. At that point, I'm saying to myself, okay, I am obviously being tested here. This is a test. This is all a test. This is only a test. Right? Yeah. So I'm being tested. And then he stopped fanning himself. Then he pulled out, I think it was a Gemara, and he kind of leaned part of it on my shoulder. Yes, he was holding it. Part of it was leaning on my shoulder. At that point, I said, what? I think I've had about enough. So I just kind of got up, and I didn't storm out of the seat, which is what I would have done when in my younger days. I would have just kind of made sure he knew that I just kind of gently got up and went to a different place on the bus, and I got even a better seat. See, Hashem loves the righteous, but you see, there's no end to that sort of thing. If you're going around correcting people, there's no end to that, because people are always doing things wrong around you. But if it's not bothering you, don't get involved. That's my rule. Okay, now we go to a new section here. We're going to start this new section just right after Hilly makes it colder in the room. So on page 910, that's a very fascinating section. Thank you, Hilly. There's a fascinating section, page 910. They come back, and yesterday we learned about all the utensils and what they took the gold and the silver and they donated. And then on page 910 it says like this: Umikne Rav Haya Livnei Reuven v'Livnei Gad, Otzum Me'od. There was a tremendous amount of cattle for the tribes of Reuven and the tribe of Gad. Otzum Me'od. Otzum Me'od means they already had a lot of cattle. And now that they divided up the cattle, the booty that they captured from Midian, now the cattle there, it even increased. Their cattle got tremendous amount of livestock. Vayiru es eretz yazer ves eretz gilad v'nei mokom nikne. They noticed that this other side of the Jordan, what we call the occupied East Bank, the occupied East Bank of the Jordan, is a beautiful grazing area, massive grazing area. There's a lot of grazing land. Vayavo v'nei Gadu v'nei Reuven vayomru el Moshe ve'Elazar according. They come to Moshe and the sons of Gad and Reuven. They come to Moshe and they say, "Vel nesia eda lemor." They say the following. Now, first of all, do you notice any problem here between these first three psukim? Between Pasuk Aleph and Pasuk Gimel and Pasuk Beis, do you see a problem?
Mentions that they come to him twice.
Okay. What else?
It reverses the order.
Yes. Excellent. First, it starts out, there was a lot of cattle for the Bnei Reuven and the Bnei Gad. And then it says they approached Moshe, the Bnei Gad and the Bnei Reuven. Right? It reverses the order. There are no accidents in Torah. You're not like, oh, somebody, wrote this at the commercial real quick, so I wasn't paying attention. This is, it needs to be explained. And then they say the following: Ataros v'divon v'yazir v'nimra v'cheshbon v'el these various cities, towns, whatever you call them. Usvamum nevo va'on ha'aretz asher hika Hashem lifnei adas Yisrael, the land that Hashem has smitten which is the land of Sichon and Og, which are the last two battles. Eretz Miknehi, that's great grazing land. V'la'avadecha mikneh, and we have a lot of cattle. And the next pasuk begins, Vayomru, they said. Now, why is it saying Vayomru? Why does it say Vayomru? They're in the middle of talking. Why does it have to say, and they said? Why does it say, and they said? Why was there a break? You're right, there must have been a break. Why was there a break?
Probably blew his lid.
It doesn't say yet. It doesn't say he blew his lid.
Probably, that was the request, when you're wheedling somebody.
So what you call wheedling, imagine a wife coming over to her husband, and she says to her husband, a wife wants to buy a new couch. They always want to buy a new couch. And a wife wants to buy a new couch. So she comes over to her husband and says, Yitzchak, we've had this couch for a really long time. At that point, a smart wife will pause. Because most husbands at that point will say one word, which is, no. No, stop. I know where this is going. So the wife, she goes, we've had this couch for a long time. And the husband isn't saying anything. So now she's encouraged to continue. They understand when they come to Moshe and say, there's a lot of good grazing land here, and we have an awful lot of cattle. And Moshe Rabbeinu gets it. Yeah, he got it. I didn't understand where they're going with this. What they decided to schmooze? They understood where he's going with this. So at that point, now let's go for the request. Vayomru imatzanu chen beinecha yutan es ha'aretz azos la'avadecha. Let us have this land as a portion. Al ta'avirenu es hayarden. Do not cross us with the Jordan. Now you have to understand that this request is not only for their benefit. This is going to be a benefit for the entire Jewish people. Because if they're going to get their portion on that side of the Jordan, that means that there's more to be divided on this side for all the other tribes. The other tribes probably have no objection either on those grounds. Okay. So why is it? So what then happens? So Moshe says to them, what? You're going to go, Vayomer Moshe, if they go to the Reuven, Hachechem yavo lemilchama v'atem teishvu po. What? Your brothers are going to go to war and you're going to stay right over here? And then he goes on with the whole shmooze. Why are you discouraging the people? The spies did the same thing. Why are you doing this? This is not a good thing. You're going to discourage the people. We've gotten in trouble this once before. It goes to give him a whole shmooze here. So the end of the story, if you skip on, then we're going to go back to that first question that Biddy asked. The end of the story is on page 912. And what do they say to Moshe Rabbeinu? Moshe Rabbeinu says, what? They're going to go to war. They're going to go into Eretz Yisrael, and you're going to stay over here. The pasuk Tes Zayin, 7 lines from the top. Vayigshu elav vayomru, gidros tzon nivne limiknenu po. We will build pens or corrals for our sheep. Ve'orim l'tapeinu, will make cities for our children. Va'anachnu nechol etzchushim lifnei bnei Yisrael. We will go at the head of the armies of the Jewish people when they go into the land of Israel. Ad asher havenu hamakom, until we bring them to their place. We never had in mind that we're not going into the land of Israel to fight. Not only we'll go in to fight, we will lead the battle. We'll go in first. Now, this answers that question. You see, the tribes of Reuven and the tribes of Gad, and it may have very well been Reuven's idea. It may have been the tribe of Reuven's idea because they're mentioned first. But the tribe of Gad were known as fierce warriors. And in Yaakov Avinu's bracha to the tribe of Gad, they were not only fierce warriors, they had a distinctive way of killing people. Most of the armies, when you went to war, you chopped the guy's head off. The tribe of Gad had a certain type of motion with the sword. They cut off the head with the shoulder. It was one chop. They chopped off a head. You could tell victims of Gad, versus victims. The victims of Gad were missing their head and their shoulder. They were known as the head and shoulders chop. And they probably started a shampoo company later on in life. But they were known as, maybe that's where head and shoulders came from. Who knows? A head and shoulders. So they were fierce warriors. So they're specifically the tribe of Gad that comes to make this offer to Moshe Rabbeinu, so that you see, we're the warriors, we're coming forward, and then eventually they're able to present, we're going to go ahead of the army. We're going to go into the land of Israel. At that point, Moshe said, well, that's different. That's different. If you're willing to do that, that's great. But they're going to get a criticism for something else. Take a look again at Pasuk 16. Take a look again at Pasuk 16. 7 lines to the top. Now look at their terminology. We will build corrals for our sheep and cities for our children. What did they put first? They put the sheep first. Take a look at Rashi. It's the right column, 3 lines from the top. Nivda lemiknenu po. Chasim hayu al mamonam yoser al b'nei v'yinosem. They cared more about their money, their property, than their children. Shehikdimu miktrehem letapam. Amar lahem Moshe loche. Moshe said, no. Asuha ikar ve'atafal tafal. Make the main thing, and make the secondary thing secondary. Binu lochem tchila orim letapechem. Moshe Rabbeinu, in his response, says to them, build cities for your children. Ve'achar kach gidros tzomchem. So, Rav Weinbach Zatzal said that this is the classic, symbolic of the classic idea. We want to provide a solid financial basis for our children. We want our children to make sure they have a degree, and we want to make sure our children, even some couples don't even want to have children until they have enough finances for them. And you see that the Torah says, don't worry about that. First take care of the children. Worry about the children. What's best for the child? Let the child study Torah. Let him learn Torah. Not everybody in the world with a degree makes a parnasa, and not everybody who learns Torah ends up. I don't know anybody in Kollel who yet who has starved. I still haven't met anybody who starved to death who's only learned Torah. And you want to make. We're always saving. What are you saving for? For our kids. And what do your kids do? They're saving. For who? For their kids. And what do? They save. For who? For their kids. Where is this mysterious kid? We never get to meet this mysterious kid who everybody's saving for. So it doesn't mean to be reckless, chas v'shalom. We never promote recklessness and irresponsibility. And if a person you have to have a parnasa, and sometimes you have to go to school and get a degree and get a profession. Person has to behave responsibly. But it's not a Torah value. First, establish a firm foundation. Some people never establish firm foundations. What about a guy who never makes it financially? So then he should never have children? He should never get married and have children because he doesn't have a guy could be 90, guy could be 49 years old and he's never made it financially. There are plenty of guys who are married, they struggle their whole life. That happens because parnasa comes from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So you try to do the best you can and realize that it's not in our hands anyway. So the Torah comes along and says, that's not the right priority. That's not the right priority, number one. Number two, I had a different idea here about why it puts the B'nai Gad first. If you look back, and I think that I haven't seen any commentary say this, but if you look back, let's look at the history of the tribe of Reuben. Let's assume this was their idea. Let's assume it was Reuben's idea, the tribe of Reuben, and yet they told the tribe of Gad, you know what, you guys presented. Why would that be? Well, if you look at the history of Reuben does not have a good track record. Number one, the first time we find that Reuben got involved in something and it didn't work out was with the sale of Yosef. He had a whole plan that he would, come back and he'd rescue Yosef. It didn't work. The next time Reuben gets involved is when Rachel dies and Yaakov Avinu switches his main tent, becomes Bilhah's tent, and Reuben gets involved and moves his bed over to Leah's tent. And he gets criticized for that. And the next time it happens is when they send the brothers down. Yaakov sends the brothers down to Yosef, who's now the viceroy of Egypt. And Yosef keeps Shimon over there. He says, I want to see your youngest brother. And Reuben says to Yaakov Avinu, send them with me. And if I don't bring him back, you kill 2 of my children. And Yaakov rolls his eyes. They're your children, they're not my grandchildren. So that's rejected. Everything Reuben touches got rejected. So, the tribe, and not only that, what else happened from Reuben? Who else? Who comes from the tribe of Reuven? Dasan and Aviram are from the tribe of Reuven. The perpetual White Sox fans, right? Dasan and Aviram are from the tribe of Reuven. They're no good. Everything in the tribe of Reuven, it doesn't work out well. At that point, the tribe of Reuven has an idea. You know what? Let us present it. The tribe of Gad they come walking in over here. We'll take them out. We'll go to war with them. We're the warriors. It'll come off better. Do you know that there's a Musar Sefer? I forgot where it is. I think it's in the Orchos Tzadikim. I don't remember for sure. If you ever have a good idea in your community, if you're a community member, you're a member of a shul or community, and you have a really good idea for the community, tell it over to either a Talmid Chacham or a wealthy man and let him present it. Because they'll be listened to. People listen to Talmidei Chachamim, and even more, people listen to rich people. If you're just an ordinary guy and you got a great idea, let somebody else present it. Because every cab driver in Israel knows how to fix the Israeli economy. Isn't that interesting? He has a lot of time to think about it because he's in his cab. Yeah, they all know. He's in his cab, so he knows how to think about it. I mean, if you had such a great idea, if you're so good at this, you should own the cab company. So it doesn't mean anything. If all of a sudden, if Warren Buffett would visit Israel and talk about fixing up the Israel, would people listen? Ooh, Warren Buffett, everybody would listen, because so the tribe of Reuven seems to give it over to the tribe of Gad to do it. So Moshe Rabbeinu makes this agreement with them, and he makes a condition. Now, take a look at Perek Lamed Beis, Pasuk Lamed Beis. It's on the next page, 9:14. So they go back and forth with all the conditions here, and then 7 lines from the top. Vayanu b'nei Gad uvnei Reuven lemor. The tribe of Gad and the tribe of they say, Es asher diber Hashem el avodecha nasa. Nachnu na'avor chalutzim lifnei Hashem eretz Canaan. We will go at the forefront, armed at the forefront before Hashem in the land of Canaan. V'itanu achuzas nachal aseinu me'ver Yarden. And our portion will be on the other side of the Yarden. So, if you notice over here, it says, we will go before Hashem into the land of Canaan. And what that means is that going into the land of Canaan has to be before Hashem. What is the good of having Eretz Yisrael? The good of having Eretz Yisrael is that we can learn Torah and fulfill Torah better in Eretz Yisrael. Lifnei Hashem, Eretz Canaan. That means we go into Eretz Canaan as long as we're Lifnei Hashem. We're loyal to Hashem, then Eretz Canaan is worth something. To come to Israel and not be observant, not be Torah observant, I mean, frankly, why would you want to be here? Just about anything material, you could do much better in other places. Entertainment? Make me laugh. In Israel, entertainment? Yeah, if you want to see movies from 20 years ago. If what do you call it? Finances? The shekel? Really? Why would you want to stay here? With the inconveniences, it's a Middle Eastern country. It's not, go to America, go to Los Angeles, go to New York, go to London, you can do much better materially somewhere else. The only benefit of Eretz Yisrael is Lifnei Hashem. So Eretz Yisrael is not Eretz Yisrael. That is one of the reasons why Moshe Rabbeinu is compared to the sun and Yeshua is compared to the moon. Moshe is the sun, Yeshua is the moon. What does the moon do? It reflects the light of the sun. What did Moshe Rabbeinu do for the Jewish people? Brought down the Torah. What did Yeshua do for the people? He led them into the land of Eretz Yisrael. That means Eretz Yisrael, the same way that Yeshua is a reflection of Moshe Rabbeinu, his Rebbe, Eretz Yisrael has to be a reflection of Torah. Yeshua is Eretz Yisrael. Moshe Rabbeinu, he didn't even go into Eretz Yisrael. He's Torah. Yeshua, Eretz Yisrael has to reflect Torah. That's why somebody once said, This is the best summation I ever heard of Israel. Somebody once said, nothing in Israel is real. The money isn't real. You know, they kind of got that monopoly money feel. The driving is certainly not real. You know, I told you, if a bus could drive up on the sidewalk and honk you out of the way, simply because you're on his sidewalk, you know, that's not real. The entertainment industry is not real. The sports in Israel, the Israeli soccer, the Israeli basketball team, the best team is called Maccabi. The Maccabi is the name of a team, and it's also the name of a beer. And neither of them are very good. and nobody's ever going to get Maccabi mixed up with Michelob. That I can tell you. And the politics in Israel is certainly not real. Nothing here is real, except the Torah, except Ruchnias. That's what's real. Everything else it's all a backdrop. It's all background for a bit. Now, it doesn't mean that we don't neglect materialism. We need you know, Israel's come a long way, by the way. Israel's come a long, long way since I first got here. When I first got here, not everybody had telephones. You know, in 1980. When we moved into our neighborhood, we had 7 people hooked up on one telephone, on one telephone line. Telephone would ring and you'd pick it up. You'd pick it up and you'd figure out which family it was for. Until we finally got it was great fun, especially when you get to listen in. Don't tell anybody. Not only that, I was living here in Malat Dafna. That was my first year of marriage. So I pick up the phone to make a call. And I hear somebody else on the line. Two guys are talking. So I'm like, Shalom. I said, Mazeh. I just say I'd make a phone call. So they said, well, we're on the phone. So I said, yeah, well, how long are you giving me out of phone? They started yelling at me. They said, get off the phone, get off the line. So I said, okay. So I hear one of the other guys say, and I kept the phone on, and I hear one of the guys say, see, I told him. And I said, no, you didn't. I'm still here. Oh, did they start hollering? Oh, did they get upset? And this is a place where the phones were working. This isn't what I'm talking about. Stores used to close, and so you couldn't buy anything between 1 and 4. A siesta. Like a lot of Mediterranean countries, a siesta. Till they realize if you want to make money, you got to work. So we've come a long way. There are better roads. There's a train, what they call the Jerusalem Light Rail, which is neither light nor a rail, but at least they call it that. It reminds me of a choo-choo train. But at the end of the day, it's all just to help us to be able to grow in the Ruchnias. That's Liftei Hashem. Now, one more point. If you take a look, and it's a very powerful idea, take a look at Perek Lamed Beis, Pasuk Lamed Gimel. Pasuk Lamed Gimel? Yeah. So it says, Vayitein lehem Moshe livnei Gad v'lev Reuven, v'lachatzi shevet Menashe. Now, the half tribe of Menashe, the chatzi doesn't mean half, part of shevet Menashe. Apparently, it doesn't say where and where. They jumped on the bandwagon also. So part of the tribe of Menashe decided to join them. Menashe ben Yosef, es mamleches Sichon melech ha'Amori, es mamleches Og melech ha'Bashan. He gave them the lands of Sichon and Og. Ha'oretz la'areh b'gvulos ha'oretz saviv. Moshe Rabbeinu gives them these lands. Now, I want to tell you something, gentlemen. We learned that Moshe Rabbeinu, the last battles they fought were against Sichon and Og. Og was a giant. Og was a giant, the famous giant. And the Gemara in Bracha says that Moshe Rabbeinu killed Og because Moshe Rabbeinu was 10 amos tall. He jumped 10 amos, took a hatchet that was 10 amos long. That means he's 30 amos off the ground, and he swung the hatchet and hit Og in the ankle. So I made a calculation once that if Og's ankle was 30 amos off the ground, based on our measures, that means he was about 4/5 of a mile tall. What's that? But what's that? The tallest just building in the world? What's it called? What's the Burj part? The Burj Khalifa, which is, I think, if I'm not mistaken, is about 600 meters, which is slightly over half a mile. Og was taller. according to the Medrash. Whatever that means. Whatever that means. Maybe he helped them build it. He put the lights and switches up at the top. I don't know, the light fixtures. So whatever it is, Og is the giant. Moshe Rabbeinu kills Og. And there's obviously symbolism about who he was intimidated. Og had a certain merit. And the merit of Og was he was the one who brought Avram Avinu the message that his nephew Lot was given. But there's a medrash, a remarkable medrash. Listen to this medrash. The medrash says like this. Og melech HaBashan, if you make a calculation, when do we first meet him? When does first enter the picture? Even before that.
No.
Where? Noach's Teva. That Og, the Gemara says, Og survived the flood by hanging on to the outside of the Teva. The water around the Teva was cooled off and Og held on over there. Whatever that means. And now we find him hundreds of years later, when the Jewish people are ready to enter the land of Israel. Now Moshe Rabbeinu kills him. So the Medrash says, what did Og Melech HaBashan do that he deserved to live so long? And what did he do that he ends up getting killed by Moshe Rabbeinu? So the Medrash says, when he saw Avram and Sarah back in the day, he said to Avram and Sarah, the two of you are beautiful like a tree alongside a brook. You ever see these, they have the greeting cards. They have these birthday cards. Some of them are these shticky cards. The shticky cards, like, the Hallmark shticky card. And some of them are like these soft focus, real sincere ones, that the girls send to each other. Real sincere. So like thinking of you, and they always have a picture, to sincere, you always see a picture of like a girl and a pony in a tree, and there's like a little lake behind them, right? That's all, somehow the combination. So they said to Moshe Rabbeinu, they said to Avram and Sarah, the two of you are beautiful like a tree alongside a brook. For that compliment, Og Melech HaBashan merited long life. So why was he killed? Because of the next sentence he said, but you don't produce fruit. For that insensitive shtach, it was decreed that Moshe Rabbeinu was going to kill him. The person understands, if a person builds people up, person encourages people, compliments people, to actually extend their life. And if a person is insensitive with their mouth, it could actually cut their life short. So Og Melech HaBashan, he's the last one that Moshe Rabbeinu kills before they go into the land of Israel. Then they have this battle with Midian. Now, one last point, we stop. Take a look at Pasuk Mem Beis. The Vayitain Moshe, bottom of 9:14. Vayitain Moshe es hagilad leMachir ben Menashe. Moshe Rabbeinu awards the Gilad to Machir, the son of Menashe. Vayeshev ba. He takes over this land, this area of Gilad. V'Yair ben Menashe, another son, halach vayilkod es chavosehem. He captured the suburbs. Chavosehem is what we would call suburbs, the surrounding areas. Vayikra esen Chavos Yair. He named them after himself. He didn't have offspring, so he named them after himself. So take a look at Rashi. One more pasuk. V'novach holach vayilkod es kenasu es benosea vayikra la novach bishmo. Now, if you look carefully, it's going to sound technical, but it's not. There's a guy named Novach, and he goes and he captures it. Vayikra la novach bishmo. Now that law normally would get a dot in the hay, what we call a dagesh. It should be read about, normally it would be Vayikra la, with the emphasis on the hay, but there's no dagesh here. Grammatically, there should be a dagesh in this hay, and there isn't. Says Rashi, why? Right column of Rashi. Vayikra la novach, second line. La eino mapike. It doesn't have that dagesh. We don't read it as la. Possessive. Why not? This name did not endure. The name, he named the city Novach, and it somehow didn't last. Leficha hurafa, therefore it's a soft sound. It's not a la. It's not letter as la. It's read as la. Because the name didn't last. What's the lesson, gentlemen? You cannot perpetuate your name through bricks and mortar. He tries to build a city that's going to perpetuate his name. That's not how one perpetuated his name. There's a Washington monument. There's a Washington monument. Okay. Well, Washington doesn't appreciate it. You know, it's just a big way to go. That's not okay. So what? We know it's a Washington monument.
I'll call it the Clinton Monument.
The what?
The Clinton Monument. It fits his personality.
Okay. Yes, he was a brick. But at the end of the day, you're not going to perpetuate yourself through buildings. You perpetuate yourself through your actions. But there's one last cute point the Mefarshim point out. What does the word novach mean in Hebrew? Noveach, novach.
Bark.
To bark. Dogs bark. The Gemara says a person who speaks lashon hara, it is fitting to throw him to the dogs. A person who speaks lashon hara should be thrown to the dogs. That's what the Gemara says. Take a look at the word right before novach. La, what does la stand for? Lashon hara. Right comes after Vayikra. La, you speak lashon hara, novach. You're going to end up barking. Vayikra la novach. You end up getting thrown to the dogs. All right, gentlemen, we continue. We might not be sure tomorrow. There might be a guest speaker, but we have to go to Parshas Maseh. We got a doubleheader this week.